The situation in the Russia-Ukraine war remains extremely tense. Ukraine has attempted a new incursion into Russian territory, specifically targeting the Belgorod region in western Russia. Following recent reports of Russian troop surrenders in Kursk, this renewed Ukrainian effort is understandable. The conflict has entered a significantly different phase, characterized by intensified operations from both sides. The implications of the Ukrainian offensive in Belgorod extend beyond initial perceptions. Both nations are fully committed to their military strategies, prioritizing offensives over defensive tactics. This shift could potentially indicate a turning point in the war. As we will examine, President Zelensky may soon propose a peace initiative, utilizing Russian territories as leverage in negotiations. In the recent months since the Kursk offensive began, Ukraine has reportedly captured approximately 500 square miles, 1,300 square kilometers, of Russian territory, including 100 settlements, with Suda as the largest. Although initial progress was rapid, the offensive has since decelerated due to exploitation limits, where resources become strained as territory expands. Moreover, Ukraine's supply lines into Kursk have reached their limits, contributing to the slowdown. Nevertheless, Ukraine has increased its military actions targeting the Belgorod region. The Ukrainian government has maintained a level of confidentiality regarding these operations, similar to their approach during the early stages of the Kursk incursion. President Zelensky did not disclose information about the Kursk offensive until it was already in progress. Presently, most updates regarding Belgorod are sourced from Russian and Ukrainian telegram channels, as well as official statements from the Russian government. On August 27th, the Belgorod governor reported attempts by Ukrainian forces to breach the border. Similar reports from Russian telegram channels suggest an ongoing attack, though the reliability of these sources is questionable. Reports indicate that Ukrainian forces have targeted 2 border checkpoints, with troop numbers cited variably between 200 and 300 soldiers. While the specifics regarding the presence of tanks and armored vehicles remain unclear, it is plausible. Concurrently, there are allegations of a substantial Ukrainian shelling campaign in Belgorod, prompting school closures. The risk to civilian infrastructures raises the stakes concerning military positions in the region. The Belgorod governor asserted control over the situation, yet such claims warrant skepticism given analogous previous statements from Kursk officials that proved inaccurate. There are currently no credible reports confirming a breach by Ukrainian forces in Belgorod. However, their significant military presence at the border checkpoints suggests this is not a fleeting event, but potentially the initiation of a second campaign within Russian territory. The motivations behind Ukraine's actions remain speculative. One plausible rationale is the desire to secure additional territory in Russia to establish a buffer zone, a strategic parallel to Ukraine's earlier maneuvers in Kursk that fortified the defense of Sumy. The strategic significance of the aforementioned border checkpoints is heightened due to their location between Kharkiv and Belgorod. Kharkiv has been a focal point of the conflict as Ukraine's second-largest city. Throughout 2022, the area has experienced intense fighting, with ongoing drone and rocket attacks. Recently, a Russian assault on Kharkiv resulted in 55 injuries and 6 fatalities, including a child, which has unfortunately become a recurring event. This situation is exacerbated by Kharkiv's proximity to the Russian border, approximately 13 kilometers, 19 miles, away, allowing for the targeting of the city by glide bombs from Russian aircraft stationed many miles off. Furthermore, Russia's seizure of portions of the Kharkiv region in May has brought them even closer to the city, with recent clashes occurring at border checkpoints in the area. While Russia lost momentum near Kherson in August, the situation warrants a revisit to Belgorod. Belgorod has experienced repeated incursions by Russian military units engaged in combat against Ukraine. Notable attacks occurred in May 2023 and on March 12th of this year, involving at least 3 groups: the Russian Free Corps, the Russian Volunteer Corps, and the Seer Battalion. These actions were initially interpreted as dissent ahead of the 2024 Russian presidential election. The individuals fighting for Ukraine oppose the war initiated by President Putin and seek regime change. Although Ukraine officially disclaims any connection to these armed groups, this claim may serve as a facade. Reports indicate that Ukraine launched a similar offensive in August, this time employing significantly larger forces and the direct involvement of the Ukrainian regular army. One hypothesis suggests that these rebel Russian corps have gathered crucial intelligence regarding border defenses in Kursk and Belgorod, passing this information to Ukrainian command. This intelligence may elucidate how Ukrainian forces managed to breach defenses in Kursk within a single day, and it might also clarify their current focus on Belgorod. Military experts speculate that the initial incursion could be part of a broader operation, with the Belgorod attack serving as an extension of the Kursk offensive. Currently, Ukraine maintains an advantage along the Russian border. Moscow faces challenges in fortifying its defenses as the bulk of its forces in Kursk comprise conscripts. Analysts consider this a significant setback for Putin's credibility, as he assured that conscripts would not engage in direct frontline combat. Consequently, these inexperienced soldiers are facing casualties or capture. If Russia encountered difficulties in Kursk, the repercussions are likely to extend into Belgorod. There is reason to believe that this offensive may match or exceed the scale of previous operations. Ukrainian forces have successfully targeted critical infrastructure in Kursk, including key bridges over the Sim River, which were essential for Russian supply transport. The resultant destruction significantly hampers operations in Belgorod. Should the lines be breached, Russia will struggle to transport troops, armored vehicles, and ammunition to the region. While Ukraine may lack the element of surprise, it continues to maintain momentum. Additionally, defenses in Belgorod have weakened as military personnel and equipment have been redirected to Kursk. The Russian Defense Ministry has confirmed the transfer of a military convoy from Belgorod to the Svatove district in Kursk, which included artillery and support combat vehicles. Russia has announced plans to deploy additional troops to Belgorod in response to the security situation, which may be viewed as a reassurance to the local population. However, these reinforcements are likely to consist of inexperienced recruits. Concurrently, the situation on the Eastern Front, particularly near Donbass, appears to be deteriorating rapidly as Ukrainian incursions increase. Russian forces are advancing toward the strategically significant city of Pokrovsk, which was recently evacuated due to heightened threats. This city, along with nearby Mirnorad, had a combined pre-war population exceeding 100,000. While the displacement of residents is tragic, the primary concern lies in Pokrovsk's strategic importance. It serves as a critical railway hub and is located at major road intersections. Control of Pokrovsk would jeopardize vital supply routes for Ukrainian forces across the Donbass front. Military expert Mikhailo Zhirov has indicated that the loss of this city could lead to the collapse of the entire front, resulting in the potential loss of hundreds, if not thousands, of square miles to Russian control. The Ukrainian military's commander-in-chief reports that Russia is concentrating its full military effort on Pokrovsk. President Zelensky anticipates that Russia will mobilize between 50,000 and 60,000 troops in this region, employing meat grinder tactics similar to those used in Bakhmut and Avdiivka. Ukrainian forces note that Russia continues its wave attacks, which, while costly in manpower for Russia, prove effective in overwhelming Ukrainian defenses. As a result, Russia has captured over 24 towns near Pokrovsk in recent weeks, advancing along the axis of its offensive in Donbass, which commenced in February. Notably, strongholds like New York and Novorodska surrendered with minimal resistance. Reports indicate that the trenches near Novorodska, previously occupied by around 20,000 soldiers, are now largely vacant. This presents a significant concern given that this city had a pre-war population 3 times larger than that of the Ukrainian-held town of Suda. Some speculate that the Ukrainian army may be retreating from this section of the front due to being outnumbered and outgunned, viewing it as a significant strategic miscalculation. Had Ukraine retained soldiers from the Kursk and Belgorod campaigns, its position in Donbass might have been stronger. The elite and well-equipped brigades involved in the earlier attacks could have provided crucial support to defending forces. There was also an expectation that the element of surprise in the Kursk offensive would compel Russia to halt its advancements in Donbass. Ukrainian General Alexander Syrsky stated that the objective of the Kursk attack was to divert a substantial portion of Russian forces from the Pokrovsk and Kurakhove directions. He noted an adjustment in troop placements, with approximately 30,000 Russian soldiers being redirected to Kursk, a number that continues to grow. President Zelensky has remarked that the assault on Pokrovsk has slowed, yet military analysts generally concur that Russian pressure is greater than anticipated. Putin appears to prioritize offensive operations in Pokrovsk over defending Russian territory, largely leaving the situation in Kursk to newly recruited troops. Media reports suggest that Ukraine's losses in the east are surpassing its gains in Kursk. Should Pokrovsk fall, President Zelensky and his military advisors may need to justify their strategic decisions. A resident of Pokrovsk expressed feelings of betrayal regarding the deployment of Ukrainian troops to Kursk. A viral meme in Ukraine captures this sentiment, questioning the rationale behind focusing on Kursk while losing ground in Donetsk. The decision-making of the Ukrainian leadership remains shrouded in uncertainty, prompting speculation about whether a critical error has been made or if a strategic calculation was at play. Understanding their ultimate objectives is crucial. It is apparent that Ukraine's leadership is seeking pathways to end the war through a peace agreement, with President Zelensky indicating that the Kursk offensive was part of a broader strategy aimed at achieving this goal. In June, a peace summit for Ukraine was held in Switzerland, attended by 90 countries, excluding Russia. At this summit, President Zelensky openly discussed the establishment of a foundation for a just and lasting peace settlement with Russia. He is seeking to hold a second summit in November, during which he has expressed the desire for Russia to participate. Should this occur, it would mark a significant event, as it would be one of the first instances of direct dialogue between Russia and Ukraine. This development follows the upcoming US presidential election, a timing likely not coincidental. Donald Trump has indicated a desire to conclude the conflict expeditiously and is poised to assume the presidency. As Ukraine's primary supporter, Washington plays a crucial role in determining the timeline and conditions for resolving the conflict. The most favorable outcome for Ukraine would be a cessation of hostilities within the coming months, allowing for the possible exchange of certain Russian-held territories for the Kursk region and potentially Belgorod. This scenario is moving beyond theoretical discussions. President Zelensky has articulated that the offensive towards Kursk is connected to the November peace summit, intending to leverage these territories as negotiation assets. While it is unlikely that he will secure all of eastern Ukraine in the discussions, a compromise appears probable. Successful negotiations will necessitate concessions from both parties. Russia seeks full control over 4 regions in Ukraine: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. The variable remains whether President Putin will adhere to these demands. Significant pressure exists on him to bring an end to the situation in Kherson and, to a lesser extent, Belgorod. However, should the Donbass front deteriorate, he may resist negotiations, believing continued military action could yield better territorial gains. Conversely, should the Donbass front collapse, Russia might assess that it is in a more advantageous position to pursue further territorial acquisition rather than accepting a peace settlement. Putin may perceive that ongoing offensives, particularly targeting strategic areas like Pokrovsk, could bolster Russia's negotiating leverage or lessen the perceived necessity for negotiations. Ukraine finds itself in a challenging predicament. Failure to maintain control over Pokrovsk and other critical eastern regions could jeopardize vital supply lines, rendering counteroffensives in areas like Kursk or Belgorod ineffective. This intensifies the urgency for the Zelensky administration to demonstrate that operations targeting Kursk and Belgorod are not merely symbolic, but integral to establishing a sustainable strategic advantage. Given Russia's capacity to focus its forces on the Donbas front and persist with its attrition strategy, the conflict risks protraction unless a significant breakthrough occurs on the battlefield or through diplomatic channels. Nevertheless, recent actions by Ukraine indicate a shift toward preparing for a peaceful resolution rather than an extended armed conflict. Should the peace summit in November take place with Russian participation, it would constitute a considerable advancement. However, the success of such talks will heavily depend on the prevailing conditions on the ground. Both parties require tangible advantages to negotiate from a position of strength, which may explain why Ukraine continues to target areas within Russia, including Belgorod. While President Zelensky aims to utilize occupied territories as bargaining chips, Russian gains in strategic cities within Donbas may diminish its willingness to make concessions. For Ukraine, the dilemma between fortifying its eastern defenses and pursuing attacks inside Russia creates a complex and precarious situation. The potential outcome may involve a compromise, wherein Ukraine might not reclaim all territory in Donbas, but could negotiate areas such as Kursk or Belgorod in exchange for a peace agreement. This will largely depend on the progress made by both parties in the coming months, as well as the influence of international allies, particularly the United States, following the presidential election. Currently, the conflict stands at a critical juncture, with significant changes anticipated on both sides. Russia may reinitiate its offensive if it perceives a strategic advantage, while Ukraine is focusing on conducting operations within Russia to reinforce its negotiating stance. This situation renders the future of the conflict more uncertain than ever, as both sides prepare for the next phase. We invite your thoughts on Ukraine's second counteroffensive in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in future videos.